Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. Emphasis on the MMA because this is no longer UFC Al Dente. I am branching out, covering my first non UFC event here with Most Valuable Promotions number one, or MVP one, Rousey versus Carano. This is an excellent card, really is. It's got so many high profile celebrity fighters within the sport of MMA. These are definitely celebrities. And it's also got a ton of UFC level world class fighters, if not UFC championship level fighters, fighting on this card. Just they have a lower profile than the Rouseys and Diaz's of the world. But everybody on this card, even the low profile fights, the lowest profile fights between both guys and girls, everybody's got an interesting story in one way or another. Although more the guys. Not that we're not interested in girls here at MMA Al Dente. And of course, when I say that, I mean women, you know. Okay, opening up the card, we have Brandon Jenkins taking on Chris Avila. My prediction here is Brandon Jenkins wins, and I'm going to go with him winning by decision. And of course, I will wait for that prop and see if it's worth betting on. But right now, with just the money line available for this fight, I can tell you I'm more interested in seeing things on the Chris Avila side of things. He's a 3-1 underdog or almost at plus 285. That alone is enticing enough for me, but my starting point for betting on this fight and predicting this fight is Chris Avila is not getting finished. As dangerous as Jenkins is, Chris Avila is not getting finished. That's my starting point. So, of course, I'm going to look for his point spread because, especially set off of a 3-1 money line, it might be nice. But that's my starting point is Chris Avila is not getting finished. So the point spread includes him winning rounds, various rounds plus 3.5 points or 5.5 points. And I do think that's something I'm waiting for. Again, I don't know what the odds are going to look like, but I'm looking for that more than anything. But also, I think if anybody was to get a finish, it'd be Chris Avila, and it'd probably be in round 3, if not round 2. And I also think Avila is definitely in the realm of winning a decision anyway. Because I do think in general, this is going to be a stand-up fight. There are still points to be scored on the ground, no doubt. But these are still strikers first and foremost. Jenkins is a little more dynamic and versatile. Chris Avila is much more boxing based. And I do think both guys are probably considering this a favorable matchup of sorts because getting a striker. Uh, so even though I do think, again, both guys can mix it up. Chris Avila, he's been training for years with Nate Diaz, the Diaz brothers, but more Nate. And no doubt he's got more than meets the eye on the ground. And for Brandon Jenkins, he's a striker first and foremost, but he can fight on the ground as well. And he's put guys away. He's got a much bigger record, 17-12. He's got an extra dozen fights compared to Chris Avila. So he's done more. But in Chris Avila's 17 fights, which is still that's a whole career in MMA, he has proven himself to be impossibly durable. He's right there with John Dodson, although not quite as proven as John Dodson. But Chris Avila is one of the toughest guys in the sport in fighting today. And again, my starting point is he's not going down here. Both guys haven't been too active MMA wise. Jenkins has mixed it up and fought some MMA in the last few years, but he's fought a lot more outside karate and bare knuckle MMA. And Chris Avila has done the same, some bare knuckle and boxing. He's kept his hands sharp, and that's always been his thing anyway. And again, here, I think Jenkins, if he finds himself in a boxing range fight, he's going to lose. And I also think Jenkins' danger and he flying wild shit it's only going to be used for scoring points in this matchup. I don't think he's going to knock out Chris Avila. I still think he can score points by being the more wild man, the human highlight reel, as he's called here. And I also think in general, he's better on the outside. I think he gets those leg kicks, those calf kicks going. He wins the outside striking battle, Brandon Jenkins. In general, I favor him, and I think he's got 3 rounds here, which is good. But I think Chris Avila is, again, really fucking tough. I think he's not going anywhere. I think he's going to come in great shape, and I think he's very much in this fight. So the only thing slowing me down from betting on Chris Avila is the fact that I'd rather put money on Chris Avila on other things like his point spread and whatever, and I'm waiting for that to become available. But I like Chris Avila at 3-1 odds here. I think there's value on him on his money line here. And again, he's the one where I really couldn't commit to one prop or path to victory if I picked a method of victory. I would pick him to win by decision, no doubt, even though he's got most of his wins coming via finish. But if anybody was to get finished here, I would pick Chris Avila finishing Brandon Jenkins down the stretch. So there's definitely, his money line is enticing, but the pick is Jenkins wins by decision, and I will look for that prop because that's one thing I can commit to on his side. And I'll definitely be waiting for the point spread more than anything else for Chris Avila. Because again, my starting point is he's not getting finished unless it's a fucking cut or a broken leg. And I think he's competitive in this fight. So, all that horse shit. Next up, we have Aline Pereira taking on Jade Masson-Wong. My prediction here is Aline Pereira wins, and I'll go with her winning by TKO in round 3. Because that sure sounds exciting. In general, I do think this is a battle between 2 strikers, and I favor Pereira because despite her being 2 years older, which was a surprise to me, she is actually, she's quite longer and taller. She's got 6 inches of height and reach. She is the sister of Alex Pereira. I don't know if you knew that. And I do think she is definitely the better outside striker between the two. And this is a fight that I have to envision being contested on the feet. I think either girl could mix it up, especially Jade Masson-Wong, but she's going to have a hard time mixing it up. I think she's going to have a hard time with this physical matchup, trying to take Pereira down in the first place and hold her down in the second place. But Jade Masson-Wong, despite only having one more MMA fight, she is the more established MMA fighter, and she's been fighting amateur going back 10 years now. Over 10 years, she had her first amateur fight, and that was a girl that beat her, and then she beat her in her professional debut. That same girl, Maggie Poulin, whatever. But yeah, only 3-2. However, the 2 losses are both very forgivable. Both UFC fighters, Mandy Boom, and Jamie Lynn Horth. Remember that fucking shit show Mandy Boom had in her last UFC fight? I might have to revisit that. But anyway, both are bigger girls, longer girls, and more able, more capable of physically imposing themselves on the ground. And they're both able to get her out of there. I mean, Jamie Lynn Horth got her out of there with the body kick. But still, they were both bigger girls. And that fight with Horth was, a lot of it was contested in the clinch. I just rewatched it. I don't know why I can't fucking remember it. But Aline Pereira, yeah, she's bigger. She's got 6 inches of height and reach. I think she definitely wins any leverage battle in the clinch. I think she makes it difficult for Jade Masson-Wong to take her down. And on the feet, where both girls want to be, as rough and tough as Jade Masson-Wong is, and she really is a gritty inside fighter, she's going to have to go through sharper outside striking of Aline Pereira, who also moves very well. So I just think Aline Pereira is going to keep her on the outside and win on the outside. And I've got Jade Masson-Wong being gritty and tough early, but Aline Pereira eventually wearing her down and finishing her. It just seems most likely to me, especially when you plug in their records, even though Aline Pereira's never finished anybody in MMA anyway. But she's also got two forgivable losses. Speaking of her career, she's been thrown in there with some really good fighters. And I don't know how serious of a career this MMA career is for her. She's already 35, going on 36. But here, I think this is a fair matchup. It's against a girl who's got forgivable losses and some decent wins, covering La Blaze. Not that she's a world beater or anything. But I think Aline Pereira is good enough to get a victory here. I think she steps over Jade Masson-Wong. And again, think she does so in round 3. The odds aren't enticing at all. Aline Pereira minus 410. I would look to trim that down with maybe a minus point spread, or maybe just wasting a few pennies on her getting a finish down the stretch, or a finish altogether. I don't know what kind of odds will be available. But for Jade Masson-Wong at plus 320, I think she's gritty, grimy. I think she's got more MMA experience. I do think she loses because she has a hard time mixing it up. But at plus 320 going against a 2-2 fighter, I wouldn't call you stupid if you bet on her or if you bet on her side of things. So in general, no real bets for me, certainly not till I see any odds. But the pick is Aline Pereira wins, and I've got her winning by round 3 TKO. Here's Mgoyan wins, and I'm going to go with him winning by decision. And this is another one where the odds are fucking lopsided, so I'll wait for the props and then lie about hitting a bet when I recap the event the next day. But I do think Mgoyan wins by decision. That's the most likely prediction, most likely outcome for me. That is my prediction. He's just getting going, though. He's got some good wins, 8-1, and his one loss is very forgivable. It was that majority decision loss to Tommy McMillan, where he almost killed him and blew his wad, and then still fought tough for the next 2 rounds. But McMillan had a little more in the tank, and he only ended up securing a 10-8 round on one of the judges' scorecards and walked away with a decision loss. And of course, McMillan is now 1-0 in the UFC after some very favorable matchmaking, in my opinion. But still, he's beaten some good guys, Javier Garcia and John De Jesus, both by decision. Those are his only 2 decision wins, but there's still 2 decision wins. 5 knockouts, 1 submission. He's definitely rough. I mean, we saw it in the McMillan fight. He's fucking... he's ferocious and definitely has some above average power. Albert Moraes, though, his opponent, he's a battle tested warrior, 34 years old, about to turn 35. Maybe not the prettiest look there, but for another few days, I'd say he's in his prime. He's only been knocked out twice, and they're years ago. I believe the last of which was to Thomas Almeida in the UFC, round 2. And then, after that, he was knocked out against this guy, Albert Kasakian. Knocked him out in 4 minutes. But that was 7 years ago. Since then, he's been going strong. He's been submitted a good amount of times, all down the stretch, though, rounds 2 and 3, and to good fighters. But Albert Moraes himself is a well-rounded guy. You see 9 TKOs, 6 submissions, 4 decisions. He's a 3-round fighter as well. And again, he's seen it all, done it all, and he's just an overall good test for David Mgoyan. But it is a test that I expect him to pass. Moraes isn't the sharpest guy anywhere. He's got good traits. But I do think Mgoyan, too, there's no reason to doubt him. I do kind of like the way he looked in the McMillan loss, even though I knew, it still wasn't the greatest look, him losing the last 2 rounds. But still, that was a pretty tough spot for him. And I think in general, the loss considered and the way he's looked in victory, especially in his recent decision victories, Mgoyan's the better man. So at 21 years old, even though he's got a lot to learn, he's fighting a seasoned veteran with 3 times the experience and UFC level shit. I still have to favor David Mgoyan. But again, as for the bet, I don't like the money line. I think this is another one where not that I'd be looking to play Albert anything on Albert Morales' side, but I think that's where the value is. Anything set off of a 4-1, 4-1 money line for a battle tested UFC veteran who's got a pretty strong chin on him and has a good bit of momentum lately. But the pick, gun to my head, David Mgoyan, I've got him winning by decision, and I doubt I'll be betting on that when the props drop. Next up, we have Jake Babian taking on Namo Fazil. My prediction here is Namo Fazil wins, and I'll go with him winning by TKO in round 2. I think Jake is going to be looking to take this fight to the ground or knock him out in 10 seconds, because that's another thing that Jake does. But I think here he's going to hit a wall trying to do that. I think he's going to have a hard time out grappling Namo Fazil. And even though Fazil's one loss is to a really good fighter, but it's by being taken down and out grappled. But he still survived there, facing all kinds of chokes down the stretch against a more proven fighter. And I think he's going to survive anything that Jake brings him early. But I think Namo Fazil, he might not even have to overcome anything. He might just take the lead early. But I do think even if he does face some sort of storm from Jake and he gets taken down, let's say, I still think he does well, survives, and then eventually takes Jake out on the feet. I think Jake is going to slow down and be fucked against Namo Fazil on the feet. This These guys can both fight everywhere, but here one guy's got a striking advantage, and the other guy ostensibly has a grappling advantage. I know my fucking words. But I think Namo Fazil definitely wins this fight. I think he's going to be too strong to bulldoze. He's already shown he can take it in his one loss. I haven't seen Jake's one loss, but it's in his debut, his professional debut. So even though it's 3 years ago, it's forgivable on those grounds alone. But I did hear his opponent talk about it, and his opponent said that Jake slowed down, even though it sounded like it was competitive early. And I think a head kick might have done him in. I don't know. But either way, he's slowed down there. He's been the distance here against this guy, Zachary Krasinski. I wasn't able to see the fight, but I know I saw him getting announced as the winner, and he won 30-25 on, I think, 2 judges' scorecards. So it stands to reason he wasn't really tested there. He steamrolled a lot of guys in seconds. He's got 4 victories, 4 of his 6 wins coming under a minute. This one here that's 6 seconds long, he was crouched down, ready to spring into a head kick, and he did that right away, like fucking Masvidal, and knocked the guy out. It wasn't quite as fast, but yeah, he's gotten a bunch of guys out of there early, but these are guys with shaky chins and shaky records, and this guy Namo Fazil is a serious fighter. He's all about it. This is not some scrub. And I think not only does he survive the first 6 seconds and the first 15, but I think he's got too much for Jake on the feet. I think Jake is going to run out of options on the feet pretty quickly. It wouldn't surprise me if Namafizil got it done in round 1, but I'm picking it to happen in round 2 because I think just some shit's going to happen before the wheels come off. But I do think the wheels come off, and I've got Fazil winning by TKO. I'll look for the props and all that horse shit. Right here, I don't mind his money line. That's a parlay play right there. It's not the juiciest line on its own, but I do think Fazil definitely wins. And as for the over-under, I'm much more comfortable playing under 2.5 rounds, even though that'll be a much shittier line. But between these two here, I agree it ends in under a round and a half. And even at minus 140, it's tempting enough. I think this one's going to get going pretty quickly, and I think wheels are going to come off pretty quickly. But the pick, no doubt, is Namo Fazil. I do think he wins, and I think he wins by TKO far above anything else. Decision. But I do think Jefferson Creighton is a really good fighter, and I think he's going to give him a hell of a test. I don't know what the odds are going to look like here. I expect Jackson will be the favorite, but if Jefferson Creighton is a nice, juicy underdog, I'll look to bet on him. or his point spread and the other horse shit that I say for every fight. But I think Jefferson Creighton in particular is an excellent round 3 fighter, which might be mitigated a little bit here by him taking this fight on short notice. But in general, I don't know if I've ever seen him lose a round 3. I've seen every fight I can get my hands on, and this guy's definitely a workhorse, Jazzy Jeff. His decision record is 7-1, and his one decision loss comes in his professional debut. And he did lose on the Ultimate Fighter to fucking Reginaldo Cezinaldo or whatever. But that guy, despite me not respecting him enough to remember his name, he was a really good fighter. Made it to the finals, really good, and that fight was really close. But Jefferson Creighton showed in that fight he could push it. His last fight, he also beat Diego Bianchini. I'm pronouncing it Italian, but that was the guy who was Reginaldo's rival on the show. They had that big grudge match. I don't know if you watch the fucking Ultimate Fighter, but that guy who was talking up a storm, he ended up beating Jefferson in round 1, or having him in trouble in round 1, took his back and held him for the whole round, and Jefferson outlasted him and then beat him up for the next 2 rounds, had him jiu-jitsu flopping and butt scooting, and that was back in November. And again, I've seen a bunch of his fights. He's outlasted most guys. Even this fight, this draw against Lamar Reed back in 2022, Uriah Faber's show, that was only a draw because he stepped on it in round 3 when he needed to. He was being crowded and neutralized in the first 2 rounds, and then round 3 beat the shit out of the guy, even though that was definitely helped by the guy having shitty cardio. But with or without the cardio, he's typically the better man in round 3. Again, he's taking the fight on short notice. Jason Jackson was supposed to fight Lorenz Larkin. So it's not as easy to hang your hat on the round 3 prowess of this guy. But in general, it's a trait that I acknowledged, and I think it's something that will carry him to victories over good fighters. Max Roskopf, who beat him. He was the guy who famously or infamously quit in the UFC, but he's a monster on the ground, and that's where that TKO takes place. He was able to pin Jefferson, mount him, I think back mount him, and then just forced a stoppage. But it was a positional thing. His chin didn't fail him, and he's still really fucking tough. As is Jason Jackson. Jason Jackson's only legitimately been knocked out once. His other TKO was on the Contender Series, and that's where he actually did get an ankle injury from getting dropped. So there's that. But he did not lose that fight by TKO. That was just an injury. And then he lost to Haider Hassan, who I believe was on the same season of The Ultimate Fighter with him. And Haider ended up making it to the finals and losing to Kamaru Usman. Whereas Jason Jackson almost killed a really underrated, forgotten fighter, Michael Graves. But then Graves turned things around and choked him out at the end of round 1. He's been submitted, but generally Jason Jackson's really tough to get out of there. His one submission loss doesn't even count. It's an exhibition fight. But yeah, like I mentioned, he has been submitted. And his 4 decision losses are all to really good fighters, especially these last 2, even though Thad Jean, that fight could have gone either way. Jason Jackson definitely could have won that. And his other loss is to Colby Covington, fucking 14 years ago. Holy shit. Life just fucking life. But yeah, Jason Jackson, he's the guy that beat Yaroslav Amasov. Yaroslav is making his return to the UFC tomorrow night, actually. It's Friday right now, but he's fighting Joel Alvarez in an amazing fucking matchup tomorrow night. And the one guy to ever beat him was Jason Jackson. Took away his wrestling, stuffed a dozen shots, and beat him up with some nice strikes up the middle and all around, and ended up knocking him out with, I think, an uppercut. He's in his prime right now, even though he's about to turn 36. But yeah, Jason Jackson, he's definitely UFC level. He's already proven it. I think the same of Jefferson Creighton. I think he's UFC level, but he's not nearly as proven as Jackson. Jackson can fight everywhere too. He's definitely more of a striker, but he can fight everywhere. And I think on full camp, Jason Jackson should win this fight. But again, Jefferson Creighton, he's a 3-round workhorse, really strong round 3 fighter. He's really tough, never been knocked out or submitted, and given everybody that's fought him a really good battle. So even on short notice, I expect his traits to hit the surface here and for him to make it interesting. The pick is Jason Jackson. I have him winning by decision, and I don't know the odds, the money line, let alone the point spread and the horse shit. So we'll wait and see. Muhammad Makayev taking on Adriano Moraes. My prediction here is Muhammad Makayev wins, and I'm going to go with him winning by decision. And I will look to try to cover that prediction with a bet. In fact, I already have, playing over 1.5 rounds. But as far as the money lines go, Muhammad Makayev is a 12-1 favorite, and Adriano Moraes is a 15-2 underdog. Just fucking crazy. We're talking about the guy that beat Demetrius Johnson and then gave him 2 very good fights in defeat after that. But I know Moraes, he's on the downswing, certainly. Things are not trending his way, especially on the feet. He's only ever been knocked out twice, and they are in his last 4 fights. DJ got him out of there with a flying knee, which was just fucking beautiful, especially doing that after he got kneed in the first fight. I could talk about these fights forever. And he hurt DJ in that fight early on, or in round 2, whatever. But anyway, he's been hurt. He's been knocked out twice, and it's happened in his last 4 fights. He's had 1 fight a year for the last 4 years, and now he's 37 going on. Well, he just turned 37. So in general, things are not trending the way of Adriano Moraes. But he's still a really skilled fighter. As you see here, 11 subs, half of his wins come by submission. And he's got chokes to threaten lazy shots from Makayev. Not that I expect any, to be honest. But he's got skills everywhere, on the ground and on the feet. On the feet, I think they're about the same height. Sherdog has Makayev an inch taller. Tapology has him an inch shorter. Who the fuck knows? But at about the same height, I think Adriano Moraes, early on, when he's not feeling 37, in round 1, when he's firing on all cylinders, I think athletically, he, at the very least, keeps his chin safe from Muhammad Makayev, but also I think frustrates Muhammad Makayev. I think he frustrates him at kicking range and frustrates him with athleticism. But still, Makayev, he's never been finished. I mean, there's a chance he gets knocked out. There's a chance anyone gets knocked out. And there's a chance he gets submitted because Adriano Moraes is that dangerous. But Makayev, there's no reason to doubt him at all or anything about him. He's nearly been beaten. You could argue Manel Kopp beat him. And that's why I do think Adriano Moraes could win a decision against a beastly wrestler in Makayev by fighting that Manel Kopp type of fight, or using some of the same strengths he had. But in general, I have to favor Makayev for sure. Gun to my head, no odds, Makayev wins. Again, there's no strike against him. His chin, his body, his cardio, anything about him. He's fought 30 fucking amateur fights, never lost one, and he's 16-0 with however many fights in the UFC, and beating guys that will be fighting for a championship before this year's through. So he's got to be my pick. But the guy who beat DJ, knocked Demetrius Johnson out, and in general just competed with DJ for 3 fights and however many rounds, fucking 12 rounds or whatever it is, 11 rounds they fought. He's definitely, Adriano Moraes is a world-class fighter. He's just on the downswing, and he's fighting a guy who's 25 years old, probably not even in his prime yet, and has already climbed the ladder of the UFC. So, yeah. The pick is Muhammad Makayev. The bet is the over, but also Adriano Moraes at plus 750. If you told me Moraes won, I would pick him to win by decision before knockout or submission, but I wouldn't be able to commit to one prop. So I just like his plus 750 money line, which is fucking astounding. But that's just a reach. The real play is the over. I mean, I like over 1.5 rounds anyway. I typically hate under 1.5 round and try to set that round. My under plays at 2.5. But I think this one goes over a round and a half. Moraes, again, he's looking a little shaky on paper, but I think his athleticism keeps him away from Makayev. And I think, again, his skills prolong this fight at the very least, if not take over and give me the fucking Hail Mary victory. So Makayev is the pick. And as for a submission, both guys are dangerous there. But if you told me somebody got submitted, I'd pick Makayev to break him down and get him out of there in round 3. A more thorough, methodical type of victory where he just next levels him like a 20-fuck-year-old against a 30-fuck-year-old. But the decision is the pick, Makayev by decision. And again, the bets are right now, I'm going with the over because it's the only thing available, and I like it. And also a little sprinkle on Adriano Moraes. Next up, we have Junior Dos Santos taking on Robelis Despaine. My prediction here is Robelis Despaine wins, and I'm going to go with him winning by knockout in like 30 seconds because that's usually what he does. I'm a big JDS guy. I'm rooting for Junior Dos Santos. I'd love to see him mix it up and take Robelis to the ground and prolong this fight and drag him into deep waters. But I think it's just going to be settled early with a 42-year-old Chin going up against the power Robelis Despaine, who is 6'8" or whatever, and really dangerous, powerful, and athletic. I think it's just it's going to be over pretty quickly. Robelis Despaine, he's got a 5-2 record in MMA. He's been kicking ass outside in karate. But all 5 of his wins take place in the first round. The first one took a few minutes against Malumba there, but every other fight averages out to be about fucking 10 seconds. And then his 2 losses are both by decision to Waldo Cortez Acosta, no shame there, and Austin Lane. If you're a UFC fighter, maybe a little bit of shame. I don't know. But both those guys were able to out-wrestle him. That was the story of the fight, and that's the story of this one. If Junior is to win, he's able to take Robelis to the mat and pin him there. And I have no doubt that Junior's got the skills within him. I mean, Junior Dos Santos, he's never going to be known for his wrestling or his grappling, but he's been a fucking UFC world heavyweight champion. That was over a decade ago. He's been fighting at a high level for a while. He's got an advantage on the ground over Robelis Despaine. But again, that shouldn't hit the surface because I don't think this one's going too long. Junior Dos Santos, it's been some time since he's been knocked out now because he hasn't been so active. And even the Jorgen De Castro fight, whatever. That was a bullshit injury loss. But before that, even if he was fighting for the very best fighters in the world back then and today, he still got TKO'd 4 times on his way out of the UFC. Even if those were against the very best fighters, now he's only 5 years older, whatever it is, and he's fighting a guy who, at least within that first window, is more dangerous than all of them, even Ngannou. Robelis Despaine, he's as dangerous as it gets early on. He may not be the best all-around fighter, but I think the danger is too much for just about any striker, and Junior Dos Santos is most certainly that. Even though, again, Waldo Cortez Acosta, who's almost a pure boxer, was able to out-wrestle him. So as for the odds, Robelis is way too big of a favorite for me to commit to that. I consider the under to be a bet on Robelis anyway. So out of everything here, I like the under. And as for Junior Dos Santos, if I was to put 17 cents on a victory for him, I would go with it being by decision. But in general, I've got Robelis winning very quickly, and I will look for the under half a round, under 2.5 minute prop if that one hits DraftKings. Because I don't know if they're going to have every option that's typically available for the UFC. Next up, we have Kenneth Cross taking on Salahdine Parnasse. My prediction here is Parnasse wins, and I'm going to go with him winning by submission in round 2 because that sounds exotic. Now, look, I am picking him to win by submission. That is what I think is the most likely outcome. And it's based more on the losses of Kenneth Cross because he's got 4 losses, all 4 of which come by submission. I haven't seen one of them this week, and I've only seen one of them all together. I saw his loss against Kilis Mota 3 years ago in Bellator. But his other 3 losses that I've never seen, they all take place 7 to 10 years ago. And they're all by submission again. So you can dismiss them, but I still feel like it's no coincidence that all 4 losses are by submission. Sometimes guys just have a thing. Like if Michael Chiesa was to lose to Melvin Manhoef in an MMA fight, it'd probably be by anaconda choke. Anybody beats him. Israel Adesanya, he's going to lock up an anaconda choke. So yeah, I'm going to go with Parnasse by submission. But every other fight that's available, all of them victories, I have seen from Kenneth Cross. And I do think he's a good fighter. I don't think there's any real doubts in him aside from, again, his submission defense. But as you see, he went 5 rounds in his last fight. He went 3 hard rounds against Emmanuel Sanchez, who's fallen off a cliff since his Bellator days, but still a really good fighter. But I think Parnasse is just going to be sharper than him, specifically on the feet. I think Parnasse is sharper, and I think he's probably sharper from the opening minute. But I do think Kenneth Cross has one good round in him. He's probably going to use that round to get a takedown, and I do think he wins the wrestling battle. But in general, I think Parnasse limits the wrestling battle to just one takedown. I think that he's got one little window to get a takedown. And on the feet, I think Kenneth Cross, when he's firing on all cylinders, might have some deceptively long shots and some nice striking for Parnasse. But I do think Parnasse is the better striker, even though Kenneth Cross might hit harder, punch for punch. And he's got some nice knockouts, Kenneth Cross. He had a beautiful knockout, a comeback over this guy, Jonas Flock. It was in round 3 where he hit an arm drag on the guy who had his back. He hit an arm drag to pull the guy off of him and then knocked him out with an uppercut, which is fucking beautiful. And he also almost hit that. He hit the same arm drag escape anyway, I believe, over the guy Styler, whatever, that he beat on the Contender Series. But regardless, I think Salahdine Parnasse has been in there with better fighters, and he's had better results. He's definitely somebody who's been UFC level for a long time now, and he's still only 28 years old. He's been one of the best guys outside the UFC for years, even through his losses. And plenty of guys he's beaten have made it to the UFC. Not that he hasn't made it. He's just, signed different contracts. But yeah, my point is he should have everyone's respect. And I think he's going to be too much for Kenneth Cross. If it goes the distance, I pick Parnasse to outlast and outwork Kenneth Cross and win the decision. Somebody's getting TKO'd. I've got it being Salahdine Parnasse. He's been caught with a straight, stiff forearm shot, and he was fucked up in his decision loss. But in general, he's a healthy guy. That decision loss, he went 5 hard rounds. And I think he's still healthy, tough as fuck, and in his prime. So I've got him standing tall against maybe the more powerful strikes of Kenneth Cross, and also taking over and putting him away. And submission-wise, again, Kenneth Cross is no stranger. He's a good grappler, but he's vulnerable. And Salahdine Parnasse, I think, is good enough to get him. And that is my prediction. And I've got it happening in round 2. I have not bet on the over-under, set close enough at 1.5 rounds. I couldn't tell you when in round two my prediction lies. But as for the money line, Kenneth Cross plus 700. Of course, that's got all the upside. Salahdine Parnasse at minus 1100. There's just too much that can go wrong in an MMA fight. So yeah, I'll wait for props and all kinds of horse shit before making a play, but it won't be anything substantial. And I have to see if the submission props are worth it. Hopefully, those are at some nice long odds because, again, that's my prediction. And in the featured bout of the evening, we have Felipe Lins taking on Francis Ngannou for what is not the heavyweight championship of MVP because they don't have titles yet. And by the way, I think the featured bout is a real thing. You know, it's the third fight from the top. Although if it is a thing, it's all horseshit, like everything else. But my pick for this fight, my prediction, I'm really gonna go out on a limb here. I'm going with Francis Ngannou, and I'll go with him winning by knockout in round one, I guess. And we'll go with round one. Look, I know why you're here. You want me to make the case for Felipe Lins. And I will. That's what I'm here to do. Make the case so I can waste fucking money on him. But he's really in a bad spot here. I think his only chance of victory is a knockout. And if he was to submit Ngannou somehow, because he is the better submission artist, he's got a deeper resume. He's been a black belt since I've been aware of him. But if he was to submit Ngannou, I think he would have to have him half concussed anyway. I don't think he's beating him with his skills. I think, frankly, he's got to beat him with luck. Now, these guys are both old, and so am I. I'm 40 years old, although I'm 6 months younger than fucking Felipe Lins here. And Francis Ngannou is about a year younger than him. But still, these are old men, even for bigger heavyweights. I know theoretically they last longer, but still, these guys are old. And Felipe Lins has suffered his share of concussions. I'll go through his losses briefly. Don't worry, I'm not going to waste your time. And Francis Ngannou, of course, he was majorly concussed against Anthony Joshua. Majorly? What the fuck? But I think he's still a relatively healthy guy. He hasn't exactly been to war since that fight. He went to war before that fight against Tyson Fury, which I'm still not over. That whole fucking thing. That was fucking rocky. That's what that was. Even though Francis Ngannou's the bigger man, he was the fucking underdog, and he's not bigger than Tyson, but he's big anyway. He's bigger than Rocky. But Francis Ngannou, he was knocked out when he was 37 or whatever. And now he's 39 and the layoff, the horse shit, whatever. I can make the case for there being some suspicion there. That's all there is speculation and suspicion. And Felipe Lins is a lighter man. So theoretically, even though I don't think so, he's the faster guy. Again, I don't think so. I think he's going to be as fast as he's ever been in this fight because he's got Ngannou in front of him. I think we're going to see a lot more movement from him. I would hope so anyway. But I still think, I don't know what his game plan is, but I put myself in his shoes, even with deep jujitsu game. And I say, I'm fighting Ngannou. I can't overcome him physically. I can't hold him down if I somehow do overcome him physically. There's no guarantee I could outlast him. He's a fucking solid machine. Turned the tides on Cyril Gane, even though Cyril Gane went for the heel hook and whatever, but still, 5-round fighter, championship, and all that horse shit. Felipe Lins, not that he doesn't have a very deep resume, not that he's not coming off of a great streak in the UFC where he last fought over 2 years ago, but he's still 40 years old. He's been knocked out 4 times. Well, 3 times. Tanner Bozer, Vadim Nemkov, and Kleber Silver, which I wish I could see. And the other TKO is a knee injury to Kelly Anderson, who I believe beat fucking Volkan Oezdemir. I could be wrong about that, though. But either way, Felipe Lins, he's faster theoretically because he's lighter. I still think he's going to move as well as he can, but I still don't think he's the fastest guy. And I do think, as far as his strikes themselves, Francis Ngannou is the sharper striker. And when I say sharp, I mean hand speed, really. His strikes are just sharper. I don't mean technical, although sometimes I kind of mean that, I guess. But believe me, I've seen Ngannou knock out Rosenstruck. I'm not going to call him technical. But I do think he's just going to make up for all of that with power. Even if Francis is slower than fucking Tanner Boser, and he certainly is. He's not going to put together a 20-punch combination like Tanner Boser did, knocking out Felipe Lins. But he makes up for it by hitting 100 times as hard as Tanner Boser. So he's only got to land one shot for every 100, you see? And I also think, again, physically, Ngannou just shuts down a whole world of options for Felipe Lins. How is he going to overcome Francis Ngannou? He's just not gonna. What's he gonna go through him with the clinch? Even if he hits a well-timed takedown, what's he gonna do? Sit on his legs and hold him? I don't think he can sit anywhere. I think he can try to force Ngannou to make a mistake and pounce on his back. But even then, I've got Ngannou just ripping him off, just pulling him off like King Kong, pulling some fucking guy off his shoulder and fucking flinging him. And then Ngannou puts him away. Ngannou, he's underrated on the ground, and I'm sure he could. I don't want to say he gets the first submission against Felipe Lins, but, if he rips your arm like he did to fucking Anthony Hamilton, he can fucking submit anybody. He's big, he's strong, and he does know jiu-jitsu. And we've seen him beat Ciryl Gane on the ground when he needed to in clutch situations, even though Ciryl Gane was kind of going down for a heel hook and giving the fight up. But still, Francis Ngannou, there's more than meets the eye. And of course, as I just mentioned, going 5 rounds with Ciryl Gane and winning down the stretch, he's just got a whole deeper resume than Felipe Lins, even though Felipe Lins is decorated himself. But Felipe Lins, there's just too much downside, even if he was fighting someone who wasn't Francis Ngannou, the most dangerous guy on fucking earth. You'd be hearing me tell you that there's a good chance he's getting knocked out. I just don't have faith in his chin. I remember saying that every time I broke him down through 4 consecutive victories, which is how he left the UFC. Incredible there. But the doubt's been there for a while, and it's certainly here in this fight. And I've got to go with Francis Ngannou. But I don't have to bet on him, even though I'm going to. But yeah, the round 1 knockout, Felipe Lins, that's what I played with no meaning whatsoever, but it's what I consider his only path to victory. And as a gajillion to 1 underdog, I'll play that side, especially when I can isolate it to one thing, especially one round. I mean, okay, there's more possibilities, but I just think in general, he's got to beat him. It's got to be Ngannou's chin failing him. And Felipe Lins winning in any round but round 1 means Ngannou's hit him a bunch. So I just think round 1 is it. But round 1, Francis Ngannou is my pick, and this will be my primary bet, even though I haven't bet on it yet. I'm always hesitant trying to find another way to play it under a round and a half and whatever else. And even either guy winning by knockout in round 1 is minus 215. That covers everybody, I suppose. But I think Ngannou by knockout round 1 is the play. I think minus 140, that's good enough. He's too big to be overwhelmed. The only thing that can stop him is his chin failing him, in my opinion. And he's too destructive for this to be a prolonged fight. And again, Felipe Lins is not, he's not fucking Dominic Cruz. He's not fast. He's I know he's going to be as fast as he can possibly be, but it's not going to last forever. It's not even going to last a round. I think he's going to get caught, and it's going to happen. So yeah, Ngannou round 1 knockout is the pick and will be the bet. Taking on Nate Diaz. My prediction for this fight is Platinum Mike Perry wins, and I'm going to go with him winning by knockout in round 4. And by knockout, I mean TKO, probably due to a fucking cut or something. That's what I mean by knockout. But I'm still going to go with him getting some sort of stoppage, and I can't be confident in that. I do think he's ferocious, and I think there's no way this goes the distance in a boring fashion. I think if it goes the distance, it's either a one-sided ass kicking or a war, and much more likely a war. But I have to favor Mike Perry. I think Mike Perry, I know he's the 34-year-old, and Nate Diaz is the 41-year-old. And even though Nate Diaz is taller and longer, Mike Perry is the sharper athlete. He's the faster guy, and he's the stronger guy. Although strength shouldn't be that big of a concern for him because he doesn't want to be tied up with Nate Diaz. But I still think in situations where they are tied up, collisions and whatever, Mike Perry has that bear hug strength over Nate Diaz. But Nate, he's much better on the ground. Nate is an incredible submission artist, BJJ black belt for years and years and years, can submit anybody. And certainly if anybody's getting submitted here, it's Mike Perry. But Nate, he's going to have a hard time getting it there. I don't think he's going to be able to take Mike Perry down. And again, that physical strength should help him there. And also, I think he won't be able to hold position as well with the lack of physical strength. And Mike Perry, he's not good on the ground. I can't say that, but he's shown he's been underrated, and he was showing that in the UFC. Fucking Mickey Gall and whoever. But here, I'm thinking both guys are looking to strike. Yes, and I do think Mike Perry gets the better of that. I could be wrong. Nate, again, is longer, taller, and he starts pumping that jab and fighting that way. And or just if he lands one shot, Nate can do more by having Mike Perry hurt than Mike Perry can by having Nate hurt. Even though Nate's 41 years old and the wheels can come off at any moment, he's still incredibly durable. Not that Mike Perry isn't. Mike Perry is tough as all fuck. But, I'm talking about Nate Diaz here because he's the older man. But even if this fight went the distance, and there's a good chance it does, I don't know about good, but there's definitely a chance it does because both guys are so fucking tough. I would pick Mike Perry to win. I would pick him to win on points. I think, again, he's the faster guy where he can make up for the height and the reach. And I think he certainly lands the more damaging blows. And for the stoppage, the knockout or the TKO, I think Mike Perry gets the first TKO here. Nate, he's not nearly as powerful, although he's a good striker, especially a boxer. Not that he can't kick, but this is a fight between two boxers, and I think Mike Perry is tough as all fuck, the better athlete, and hits harder. And again, he's the stronger guy that can protect himself in some dicey moments with some physical advantages on the inside. So I think Mike Perry wins. I think it happens down the stretch with some sort of bullshit TKO where it's not, I don't mean complete bullshit. It could just be an accumulation. The ref stops it. It could be one shot, but I would think it's more likely a cut. And Nate Diaz is getting chewed up and his face is a mess. And as for my bets, I've bet on Mike Perry winning in rounds 3, 4, and 5. And by the way, knockout in 3, 4, and 5 are worse than the flat rounds. They're quite worse. I don't know about quite worse, but they're all worse. So they fucked up. DraftKings did anyway. So if you're looking to sprinkle on those, sprinkle on the flat round finish, rounds 3, 4, and 5, or whatever you want. I didn't even look at 1 and 2. I'm sure they're better as well. But the point is, I think he wins down the stretch. He could just knock out Nate Diaz, and his 41-year-old chin turns out it's 41, and he goes down in round one, like Ngannou with Felipe Lins. Please. But I think it's more likely to just be a fight where Mike Perry, both guys think they're getting their way, but it's Mike Perry getting his way, and he hits harder, and he's mean and tough as fuck, and he breaks down Nate Diaz slowly in a war. So I'm going with Mike. I've also bet on Mike Perry, his money line. The odds were tight enough where before anything, I bet on him, before any props a fucking month ago. But certainly I like him to win. The minus point spread cuts that line in half, minus 5.5 points. I'm not as gung ho about that. I haven't bet on that, but there's something there. I do think, of course, it covers the finishes for Mike Perry, but I think Mike Perry should win. I think he's just the better athlete. He's in his prime. He's battle tested. I didn't even go through these guys' careers, but I'm assuming you know all their careers, and you know that I know their careers. But yeah, these are two fucking war horses. And Mike Perry is stepping back into civilization to go fight in a fucking cage here instead of doing it bare knuckle, fighting underground, wherever they hold those events. But my prediction here is round 4 TKO, Mike Perry, and I'm siding with Mike Perry. My prediction for this fight, I'm going to go with Ronda Rousey winning by round 1 armbar. Imagine that. I think that's the most likely result based on all the fights I've seen from these two back in the 90s. I mean, I know it was some time ago, but still, the 90s was not that long ago. I mean, there's plenty of people that are still alive from when they were fighting. And I think Ronda Rousey, based on that footage, most of it black and white, she probably pulls off an armbar. All right. Look, I'm going with her winning by armbar because she's beaten fighters that are still active today. Excellent fighters. And Ronda Rousey was so ahead of her time, which was much more advanced compared to Gina Carano. I know they nearly intersected there, but Ronda came after Gina and she smoked the best girls in her day. And she doesn't just win like she's for knocking people out, even though she did that, knocked out Alexis Davis, knocked out Betch Cajeda, Betch. But Ronda Rousey wins with an armbar. That's 90% of her victories. Actually, let me see. It's 75% of her victories. I'm a jerk off. But still, it's 100% of her submissions. And I believe still, without having looked at it, all but one of them come in round 1. And then Miesha Tate in the rematch prolonged her to round 3. But that's because Ronda is a unique threat. That armbar, it's not something people weren't aware of. Kat Zingano knew about the armbar. I don't know if she knew about that fucking angle. That's one of the fucking coolest armbars ever. But she's just that good, Ronda. I always said, because I talk about fighting women a lot, I always said talking about female MMA, which a lot of it got blown out of proportion. They could beat up a man or whatever. Some of them can, but I always made the point anyway that I'd rather fight any woman. And I'm bigger than all of them, but I'd rather fight any woman in MMA aside from Ronda Rousey because Ronda Rousey, she's like Shinya Aoki. How a woman can beat a guy is with some, it's got to be something like an armbar, putting your fucking hips and your legs against someone's arm. It's not going to be with physicality. And Ronda Rousey moves like a fucking fish in water. What? I don't know what that means, but she moves around on the mat like no one else. You can pin her flat and she'll swivel her hips and get her fucking arm around your, underneath your fucking head for an armbar when there's only 2 inches there. And she was very flexible and all that. And that's the thing too. I know both girls have been through a training camp and they've been through all kinds of ups and downs and pregnancies and horse shit physically and everything else. But Ronda Rousey's been wrestling in the WWE. And that's real relevant shit. I can't tell you how fucking relevant it is. But she's been athletic. and I watched her wrestle in the WWE. Not that I'm like a religious fan, but I watched her. She wrestled fucking at WrestleMania with The Rock. But oh no, Triple H. I don't know. But either way, I think it was The Rock, right? Ronda, Ronda is the sharper athlete. She's the younger woman. She's the more recent athlete, and in their primes, uh, operating under optimal conditions, I would still have picked Ronda to win by round one armbar. So unless she's fallen off a cliff, I still think that is far and away the most likely result. I don't know if it happens in 40 seconds, and I'd love more than anything to see Gina give her a good battle and really win the fight. My bets be damned. But Ronda Rousey is very fucking unique. And I think, in any position, which she's shown, Gina gets on top of her in the guard, she's in trouble. Ronda gets on top of her, she's in big trouble. And if you're doing some fucking pivoting, swiveling, fucking rotating type of scramble, your arm's in danger, as Katz and Ngannou will tell you. She's been knocked out twice. They're in her most recent two fights. And, I can't pretend that if she wasn't fighting again after recovery, coming back into those fights, that I wouldn't be saying she's been knocked out twice. She's got a suspect chin. These weren't TKOs. Her lights were shut out, and she was fucking concussed on her feet against Nunes. Yeah, but these are still women. It's not like they're fighting Francis Ngannou here. That's when a suspect chin is much more likely to hit the surface. Gina's rough. I think Gina hits her best shots with some elbows, which got to get in armbar range to make that happen. But Gina Carano, if she can concuss her, it's when Ronda's in tight going for an armbar and leaves herself exposed. But alas, is that the word? My pick is Ronda Rousey. I've got her winning by submission in round one. Gina Carano, she's got one loss. It's the Cyborg, and she gave her a pretty damn good fight. Some nice scramble, bowled her over into mount, and had some good ground and pound, and for a brief window, and looked tough as fuck and game as fuck, really, in that fight against Cyborg. And that was when Cyborg was Vanderlei Silva. I cannot overstate how feared that woman was. Now, that's a woman I wouldn't want to fight. Cyborg. I take al dente. But before that, she beat some really good fighters. Gina Carano, back then it was a smaller world, so everybody was kind of an established fighter. They all fought themselves, each other, and whatever, and themselves internally, I'm sure. But Gina Carano still beat some very good fighters, established fighters. I mean, her whole resume is filled with names. They may not be too recognizable, aside from maybe Tanya Evinger or Julie Kedzie, if you watch Invicta. She was a commentator there. But Ronda Rousey, Gina Carano, she's got too long of a layoff. And she even, again, in her prime, I'd say Ronda's an athletic problem for her. I think Gina Carano is going to be playing catch up. And when they have a little 15-second window on the ground, Ronda finds an armbar. Here, you got to wonder whose wheels have fallen off. One's been out for 25 years. The other one's been out for 17 years. It's a little less than that, but it's fucking insane. There's no predicting anything. But based on having seen every one of their fights and some of their wrestling matches, I think Ronda wins with a round one fucking armbar. And I don't know where the odds are here. Round one flat is minus 125. Round one submission is minus 120. Need I even fucking say it? You just play the flat line. And as for the over-under, the under is the way to go. I really like the under. I thought these lines would be way different. But round one and under a round and a half, I really like both of them. I think they cover both girls past the victory, paths to victory. And Again, I think if Gina Carano wins, it's smashing Ronda, and if Ronda wins, it's a 40-second armbar. So yeah, I think that is enticing, and that's my favorite bet. So Ronda round one submission is the pick. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit, and check out my other videos. And let's go, Gina. Fuck my bets. Let's go, Gina. And in the new main event of this video, we have Phumi Nkuta stepping up on short notice to take on Adriano Moraes. Muhammad Makayev had some visa issues, because there's always something with Muhammad Makayev. But my prediction here, I'll just give it to you at the top. I'm going with Phumi Nkuta, and I'm going with him winning by decision. Adriano Moraes is by far the best guy this guy's fought. It is no lock whatsoever that he's going to win, but I just have a ton of faith in the guy that I think here, stepping up 10 rungs on the ladder, he's still going to get it done. And I've got him getting it done by decision, which is why he's never been in the UFC, because he's not the greatest finisher. But he's a workhorse. He's got skills in every direction, and gun to my head, he wins by decision here. But again, Adriano Moraes is by far the best guy this guy has fought by leaps and bounds. He's got submission threats for Phumi Nkuta that he's never dealt with in a fight, and he's got striking threats that he's never dealt with in a fight. Phumi Nkuta's fought pretty comfortably throughout his 11 wins. He's had to grind. I don't want to say it's all been easy, but on paper, a lot of them have been shutouts. Phumi Nkuta, he's 11-0 against 7 decisions. He's been 4 rounds on multiple occasions. He put this guy away, Miguel Ramos Diaz, in round 4, which was a good look, even though he was fighting pretty comfortably in that fight. And he put him in the crucifix and got him out of there. He actually had him in the crucifix multiple times. But he also had a round 4 victory over this guy, Jason Eastman, and Alberto Trujillo. And again, he's shown he can fight 20 minutes very comfortably. If he gets hurt or nearly gets strangled, then Adriano Moraes turns this into a real fight, or even just athletically. Like I said, Adriano Moraes could frustrate Muhammad Makayev in that regard. He could have something for Phumi Nkuta, physically and athletically, where he's never dealt with it, and that could frustrate him. But I still think Phumi Nkuta, there's no doubting him. He's never been beaten, obviously, never been knocked out. No one, I can't remember anybody getting a submission on him. This guy, Cody Davis, is the one guy to take a round from him that I saw. And he took round 2, and he did actually take his back. He might have attempted a submission there, but Phumi kept calm and reclaimed control of the fight in round 3. But this guy, I'm picking him to win despite him taking a short notice fight, because he's been so reliable in these fights. I mean, he's got really sharp skills and particularly sharp takedowns, and he's shown he can hit these takedowns deep into the fight. Again, he's jumping up a bunch of rungs on the ladder in every category here against Adriano Moraes: experience, submission, ground game, striking game, clinch game, fuck it. Everything. Adriano Moraes will be better, and certainly experience. He's got a wealth of experience, which I already blew him in the Muhammad Makayev breakdown, where I was talking about his series of fights with Demetrius Johnson and all that. I'm going to spare you all that, but Phumi Nkuta is who I'm here to talk about, and without him having beaten anybody great, and even I struggle with good, I might be able to get that one past the finish line. But without having beaten anybody of note, I still trust this guy's skills. He's a good striker, a better grappler, and an excellent wrestler. He's in phenomenal shape. And anytime he's been tested in any way, he's passed that test. I've seen every fight I can get my hands on, and I've seen him fight before because I've heard Ray Longo talk about him, sing his praises. And that's part of what gives me confidence as well. Ray Longo has been hyping Phumi Nkuta for a long time. And this is his shot. This may not be a UFC fight, but this may as well be a UFC fight. He's fighting the guy who beat Mighty Mouse and gave him a hell of a trilogy, and the guy who's got an incredibly deep resume. So Phumi Nkuta by decision is the pick. I think it's a very tall order, but I've got to go with it happening. I think he can uh, hit those takedowns. I think he can hit them all 3 rounds, even coming in on short notice. And without having seen any proof that he's got an impenetrable ground game or whatever, I'm taking him to survive chokes from Adriano Moraes and outwork him. Just overall outwork him and outgrind him. I'll wait for the odds. I don't know the money line, let alone the props, but certainly I picked Nkuta to win by decision. I will look for his money line first, and I'll look for the point spread and all that, but decision far and away is the pick. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit, and check out my other videos.